Hello, people. The fucking sun is so bright I can't hardly see. I finished a book, The Soul of the Ape, by Eugene Marais. This book's been around my house probably for 30 years because I don't think I've read any anthropology slash natural history since I was in my 20s. I had, a good 5-6 year stretch where that's all I read. And I don't know why I picked this up. I've never read anything else by Marais. It's not spelled Marais. It's one of them French names, kind of like Calais, where you don't pronounce the S. Mr. Marais, Eugene, is a South African who, he's of French stock, French Huguenot. They a bunch of them, it wasn't just Dutch people that moved to South Africa. There was a bunch of these some kind of a religious sect, the Huguenot, that were being persecuted in France, so they went to South Africa. And I guess the cool thing about this book is the foreword. It was only a 216-page book, and 55 pages of it were written by, it was the foreword, written by Robert Ardrey, an old friend of mine, Robert Ardrey. I read a couple of his books, the most notable being The Hunting Hypothesis, and that's the kind of crap I read when I was in my 20s. It's all been discredited. I'm pretty sure that this has been discredited. This was supposed to have been, they make a big deal about how Marais and another guy go and they stay with a band of Chakma baboons and observe them, and this is the first time that anybody has gone and lived with a bunch of primates. And it may have been, but they didn't actually peacefully coexist with them. They did experiments on them. They fucking shot one of them, and I don't know. This is very old. The manuscript for the Soul of the Ape apparently had disappeared, and nobody knew where the hell it was for 40 years, and then finally somebody found it. It reappeared. My notes here, my old buddy Robert Ardrey, The Hunting Hypothesis. Marais was an interesting man. I think that a biography of Marais would have been a lot more interesting than this book was. Bottom of page 46, last two paragraphs. Bottom of page 46. I don't know. I don't see what I'm supposed to be reading there. It doesn't look very important to me. But it also says the last two paragraphs on 54 and 55. Perhaps a sense of individual futility was too strong in Eugene Marais. Perhaps causal memories of misfortune made union in his own subconscious with the phyletic memory of the monster Leilali. The monster Leilali is a crocodile. Perhaps his tragic sense as a poet overcame the creative optimism of the scientist. Perhaps he was a man born too soon and he knew it. Or perhaps it was nothing at all so large, so profound, but that in an hour of inspiration he returned to his labors on the soul of the ape, and found, as the weary months slogged by, that he was not too soon, but too late, too late. And so he blew himself to pieces with a shotgun on a farm near Pretoria. We shall never know, nor does it matter that much. His manuscript is rough, it lacks a proper conclusion. In certain areas of his argument, one longs for further demonstrations, for those more detailed observations which he could undoubtedly have supplied. Had Marais in the southern autumn of 1936 been enabled to finish his manuscript, polish the rough parts, rethink a few conclusions, add further ideas that had come to him in recent years, then beyond all question he would have left us more than we shall find in the following pages. But he left us enough. He gave us certain imperishable thoughts, still new and useful in time of human crisis. And he gave us something else, the memory of his own life, in itself an imperishable testament to the awesome wonders and the legitimate mysteries of the being called man. I actually, last night, I Googled when was this written, and Google could not give me a straight answer because the manuscript was lost like that, Marais is quoting from another book here, and it's the only little humorous thing I see in the whole fucking book. This is somebody else wrote this. In reality, they accompany each other because they are complementary, and are complementary only because they are different. What is instinctive is instinct being opposite to what is intelligent in intelligence. And Marais has to say about that, I must confess that the concluding portion of this statement does not convey a very clear meaning to me. Yep, I know how you feel. It doesn't convey a clear meaning to me either. Marais knew a thing. Oh, he's doing a chapter here about about addiction and about whether primates can be addicted. And Marais was addicted to morphine. That was I'm sure a contributing factor to his suicide. Bottom of second paragraph. Oh, I'm not going to read that because I remember what it was. Marais claims that it's only recently that drinking too much or being an alcoholic acquired a stigma. But you know what? I know that he's wrong because I read that stupid courtesans and fish cakes book, and even the ancient Greeks had a thing or two to say about somebody that was drinking too much. Yeah, and here's my note says, at times I wonder what the baboon observation even has to do with this, because he doesn't really mention a whole lot about it. The baboons are only rarely mentioned and even more rarely used to illustrate a point. Too many, over and over in the book, he's talking about hypnosis. And, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I just Googled, has hypnosis been discredited? Because most people, their experience with hypnosis is entertainment value, That's all I've ever seen. It's fucking hokey, But the Google, again, could not answer my question. Has hypnosis been discredited? There's so many things in this book that I'm sure are very old hat, that this is like reading a medical text written in the 1600s. My note here says, as close as I can tell, Marais wrote this in 1919. The manuscript was lost for 40-some years. Lots of these things have been discredited years ago. Read the second paragraph down to intermediate types. One would anticipate that the anthropoids possessing as they do a far higher protective mentality, would exhibit generally greater individual divergence from type than the chacma, and our present somewhat scanty knowledge of the great man-like apes seems to confirm this assumption. And there's an asterisk next to that, and you go down to the bottom of the page, and Ardrey says, we must again recall that in Marais' time, no other study of wild apes or monkeys had yet been made. My own knowledge of the chacma leads me to believe that some of the different forms of the chimpanzee, which have in recent years been discovered in this country, and which have been assigned to distinct varieties, will eventually be found to be continuous variants of the same species. Even now it is becoming difficult to draw a hard and fast line between two such widely different forms as the gorilla and the chimpanzee. Several specimens of gorilla-like chimpanzees and chimpanzee-like gorillas have been secured, which point to the probability that those two forms are connected by an unbroken chain of intermediate types. That would be wild if there was an unbroken. There isn't. There's a mountain gorilla and there's a lowland gorilla. And as far as I know, there is a chimpanzee and a bonobo. Those are the only species. I could be wrong, I guess, but that's it. Thank you for watching.